Hi yogis, welcome back to another yoga class with me, Hannah. So we're going to do something a little bit different today because, as you might have noticed, it is incredibly hot in London at the moment. So we're going to do a style of yoga called yin yoga. So it's a much slower, calmer practice, basically just holding certain poses, mostly on the floor, holding them for a long time, and it's a really nice practice to do when it's hot because it's a very cooling practice. So I'll talk you through it as we go along. It's quite good to have some props when you do yin yoga. You don't need anything fancy. I've got some yoga blocks here, but a cushion or some books, anything you've got to hand, a couple of blankets are quite useful just for padding up the knee joints and things like that. So go and grab a couple of cushions, pillows, whatever you've got, and we will make a start. So we'll do a little bit of a warm-up first, but nothing too crazy, as it's just incredibly hot. So let's start in a child's pose today. So bring your big toes to touch, take your knees apart, and then just walk the hands forwards and bring your forehead down towards the mat. So coming into Balasana, child's pose, which is a really nice resting pose to start with. Also used quite often in yin yoga as well. So just melting your heart center down towards the mat. Just reaching the arms out as far as you can. So just starting to feel that stretch through the spine. Also just a gentle opening through the hips, and softly closing down your eyes. So just starting our practice in a nice, gentle, calming, restorative pose. And just starting to let go of any stresses or strains or thoughts. Just starting to create that stillness in the body, and then moving on to create that stillness in our minds as well. So in yin yoga, we still practice our pranayama, our breath control, so breathing in and out through the nose. But it's a little bit more relaxed in yin. So maybe using a count of 4 for the breath. So inhaling deeply for 4, 3, 2, 1, and then exhaling slowly for 4, 3, 2, 1. So just keeping that nice, deep, slow breath going throughout your practice. So just helping to keep your mind from jumping all over the place. Now this mind breath control, even more important in yin yoga because we are holding our poses for a long period of time. We're keeping very still, and it's quite easy for the mind to wander. So even more important to use our pranayama, that breath control. So let's just take a few more rounds here in our child's pose. Nice deep breath. Just to really arrive in our practice today. Just letting go of any thoughts. Withdrawing from any sounds. Just taking the focus inwards. So staying in your child's pose position, I'm just going to take a little side stretch here. So start to walk your hands all the way over to the left-hand side, placing your right hand on top of your left hand. So reach over as far as you can. Maybe the hands come off the mat. So just reach over as far as you can so you really feel that stretch down the right side of the body. Keep pressing the hips back down towards the heels. Just take in a couple of nice deep breaths on this side. And then walking the hands all the way back to centre, then walking the hands over to the right hand side. Again, maybe the hands come off the mat, placing the left hand on top of the right hand, reaching over as far as you can, feeling that stretch down the left side of the body. Just taking in a few deep breaths on this side. Keep pressing the hips back towards the heels. And then making the way back to centre, and this time reaching both hands as far forwards as you can. Maybe coming onto the fingertips, making this a real active child's pose. Just feeling that nice stretch through the spine. Keep pressing the hips back towards the heels. Deep breath in and out. And then softly opening up your eyes. Just start to creep the hands in towards the body. Just making your way into an upright position. Bring the knees together. And then tuck the toes under. I'm going to come into a little toe squat here. So make sure all the toes are tucked under. Sitting up nice and tall. Try to keep the shoulders over the hips, over the heels. So sitting up really tall. It's really nice to stretch out those feet. Just going to take a few deep breaths here. So I know this can be a really uncomfortable pose, so we're not going to hold it for too long. But really important to stretch out those feet. So just really focus on your breath here. Nice deep breaths in and out to the count of 4. That helps to keep your mind focused. Just make sure the shoulders are relaxed, sitting up nice and tall. And then we'll come forwards. Release the toes, maybe give them a little bit of a tap. And then come to sit back on the heels. So sitting up nice and tall, let's start to bring some movement into our spine. So as you take a big inhale, push your chest forwards, arching your spine. As you exhale, bring your chin to your chest, rounding your spine. So inhale, push the chest forwards. Exhaling, chin to chest. Inhale to arch your spine. Exhale, rounding your spine. Let's inhale to look up. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale, push the heart center forwards. Exhale, draw the navel in. Inhale, draw the shoulder blades together. As you exhale, spread the shoulder blades. Let's inhale to look up. Exhaling, chin to chest. So one more nice big inhale. And exhale. Coming back to our neutral spine, we'll take a little twist. So as you inhale, lengthen up through the spine. As you exhale, take a twist to the right. Right fingertips behind you. Turn to look over your right shoulder. You can just place that left hand on the right thigh. And just rotating as much as you can. Inhale, sitting up tall. Exhale to rotate. So just gently push that right shoulder back. Making our way back to centre. Take a nice big inhale to lengthen and prepare. Exhale, twisting to the left. So left fingertips behind, turn to look over your left shoulder and just place that right hand on the left thigh. Sitting up nice and tall as you inhale, rotating as you exhale. And just holding this twist. And then coming back to centre. Okay, let's make our way onto all fours, coming into a tabletop position. As you inhale, take the right arm up to the sky. As you exhale, thread the right arm underneath the left. So bringing the right cheek the right ear, right shoulder down to the mat. Coming into a little shoulder stretch. Now you can keep your left palm on the mat, or you can just start to walk that left hand towards the top of your mat. So just increasing the stretch here. So take a few deep breaths here, really pressing that right shoulder down into the mat. Nice deep breaths, keeping the hips up high. And then bringing that left hand all the way back, coming back into your tabletop position, and we'll take the other side. So inhale, reach the left arm up to the sky. As you exhale, thread the left arm underneath the right. Bring the left shoulder, the left cheek, the left ear down to the mat, either keeping the right palm on the mat, or you can just reach that right arm towards the top of your mat, looking under that right armpit. Just feeling that nice stretch in the shoulders. Take a couple more nice deep breaths in and out on this side. And then bringing that right hand all the way back, pressing yourself up into your tabletop. Let's take the hands a couple of inches in front, spread the fingers nice and wide. Make sure that middle finger is pointing forwards. Tuck your toes under and push yourself up into a downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. So just start to have a nice stretch out in your down dog, making sure that your feet are hip distance apart and gently pressing your heels down towards the mat. If your hamstrings are feeling really tight, then just take a bend in the knees. Press your chest towards your thighs. Press down through the knuckles. Let's shake the head out a few times, yes and no. Release any tension in the head and the neck. And then just take your gaze to the back of your mat. Let's start to walk our dog out here. So lifting up one heel, pressing the opposite heel down towards the mat, and then switching sides. So just nice slow movements here, stretching out down through the backs of the legs. Just slowly starting to warm the body up, although we're probably quite warm already. So just some gentle stretching. Keep pressing the chest towards the thighs, hips up nice and high. And take a nice big inhale. Let's come onto tiptoes, stretch out those legs. Exhale, heels down towards the mat. Inhaling onto tiptoes. Exhale, heels towards the mat. And take some little footsteps towards your hands, taking your feet hip distance apart. Take hold of opposite elbows, coming into your ragdoll pose. So knees are nice and soft. And you can start to take a little sway from side to side, keeping the head and the neck completely relaxed. Nice and slowly, just loosening out through the backs of the legs, through the lower spine. Just taking some more deep breaths in and out through the nose. And releasing the arms, take the arms behind you, interlace the fingers, squeeze the shoulder blades together, push your hands towards your head, just stretching out the shoulders. So you can keep the knees soft here, or you can straighten the knees, so whatever feels good for you. Again, just keeping the head and the neck nice and heavy, chest towards the thighs, keep pushing the hands towards the head. And then slowly releasing the hands down towards the mat. And we'll slowly roll up to standing. So one vertebra at a time. Keep your chin to your chest. Just slowly coming all the way up. Taking the hands overhead, interlace the fingers. Take a little side stretch over to the right. So push that left hip out to the side. Coming back to center, a little stretch over to the other side. coming back to center, releasing the arms. Let's take another roll down. So chin to chest, nice and slowly rolling the body down, softening the knees if you need to. Just pausing here, shaking out the head, and then slowly start to roll the body all the way back up to standing, taking the arms out wide overhead, palms together at heart center. Bring the palms together at heart center. So just take a moment here, a few deep breaths, just grounding down through the feet, standing up nice and tall. Take the palms down by the side. Nice big inhale, palms up and overhead. Exhale, palms together through heart center, taking a forward fold. Let's inhale to look up halfway, so create that flat back. And then as you exhale, we're just going to come down onto the floor and come into our first yin pose, which is a caterpillar pose, so a forward fold. So having the feet out in front, and take the arms out to the side, lift the arms up. As you exhale, we're just going to fold the body forwards. Okay, so this is our first yin pose, caterpillar pose, a forward fold. Now, you want your hips to be folding forward. So if you feel like you're not folding forwards, this is where your props can come in handy. So you can sit up on a block or a book, whatever you have to hand. You want to make sure you've got that forward folding motion. Okay, so maybe a block, maybe a cushion or a blanket, that can be quite nice. So just sit on, and just give you a little bit extra height. If your hamstrings are really tight, then just keep the knees bent like this, just folding over. So you might remember the forward fold we do in a yang practice, Paschimottanasana, where we're like pulling the body forwards. Yin is completely different, it's very passive. We're just folding forwards really loosely. Now I'm going to set a timer because we're going to hold this pose for 4 minutes. Okay? So I'm just going to make sure that we don't overstretch. So just find your position, finding what works for you, whether you've got the knees bent, whether you're using props, whatever it is that you're doing. And when you've found a position that you can hold, just finding that stillness. Okay, so yin is all about being still. So this is why it's a really nice yoga practice to do on a hot day. It really calms the body down, calms the nervous system down. And it's a really healing practice. It's a really good way of stretching deep into the fascia, the connective tissue that we have in our bodies. So if you do a lot of dynamic yoga, a lot of vinyasa, so the classes I normally do are vinyasa, that's a very yang practice. So yang is hot, yin is cold, yang is active, yin is a lot more passive. So it's always good to have that balance in your life, the yin and the yang. So if you do lots of yang activities, running, power yoga, really nice to balance that out with a passive yin practice. Okay, so we're just coming up to halfway point here. So got another 2 minutes or so in this pose. So there's only ever 2 reasons to move in a yin pose. One is if you're experiencing any kind of pain. Okay, so you should always come out of a pose if you feel pain. Okay, so you should feel a really strong stretch for sure. But any kind of pain, then make sure you come out of a pose. And the other reason for moving is if you feel you can go a little bit deeper into a pose. So maybe after a couple of minutes, you start to feel the body is really stretched. You can maybe move a bit deeper. So just being mindful as always with your yoga practice. So if you move a little bit too deeply into a pose, then you can always come back out again. We're just coming up to our last minute in our caterpillar pose. So you should be feeling this through the back of the body, so through the back of the legs, through the spine. So yin is a very quiet practice as well, and that's why it can be very challenging for a lot of people. The biggest challenge in yin is keeping the mind quiet. Just holding one pose, it's very easy for the mind to start going for a little wander. So it's a very challenging practice in that respect. So just try and stay focused on your inhales and your exhales. Okay, so that's our 4 minutes over. So just slowly start to roll yourself out of your pose. So move any props that you might have, and then make your way onto all fours. So it might be nice to just do a few cat-cow stretches after that caterpillar pose. So just make any movements that you feel you need to after spending 4 minutes in that pose. So we're going to move on to dragon pose now, which is a nice deep hip opening pose. So on all fours, step your right foot forwards towards the right side of your mat and have the palms in the centre. Now if you've got some sensitivity in your knees, you can roll the mat up and just put your knee on the mat. You can use your blankets, put your blankets under your knees, that feels good. So any kind of cushioning that you've got. And we're just going to sink down into the hips. I'm going to start my timer again. So we're going to do 4 minutes on this side. So again, just make your way into this pose. Find yourself into the position that you can hold for 4 minutes. So just starting off nice and gently, not going to your full edge. So in yin yoga we call it working to our edge. So finding that edge, finding that sweet spot where we really feel that stretch. So gently pressing the hips forwards in this pose. So feeling a lengthening on this left hip flexor, this left quad. And you can keep your head up in this pose, you can release your head down if that feels more comfortable. So anything that works for you. But just finding that stillness again, as much as you can. So finding your dragon pose, and then coming into stillness. So yin yoga is a really great practice to improve your flexibility. It's often when we're moving through a vinyasa flow or a power flow, we're not holding the poses for very long, so we don't really give the deep connected tissue a chance to break down and lengthen and stretch. That's why yin is such a good balance for our other more dynamic practices. So just coming up to halfway here. So just seeing how you feel. Maybe you feel like you can go a little bit deeper in this pose. So you can maybe grab a block here and bring your forearms down onto the block. Maybe bring your forearms down onto the mat if that's available to you. If not, just staying on the palms. So again, just working really mindfully with your body, not forcing anything. Careful not to overstretch. Be nice and gentle with your body. So if you do start to feel any pain, if you feel like you've gone a little bit too deep, then just feel free to come back into this starting pose and just holding this one. So coming up to our last minute in our dragon on the left pose. So really melting the hips down. This is a really good pose if you're doing quite a lot of sitting down at the moment, which I think a lot of us are doing. Really good to lengthen out the hips. So just remembering to focus on that deep breath as much as you can. Try not to get involved in that internal dialogue that we have going on. And maybe your life is really, really busy and you're always rushing around and always got 101 things going on. So you might find yin yoga quite frustrating, just being still and being quiet. So really try and just give into this practice. Okay, that's our 4 minutes up. So moving nice and slowly. Been in these poses for a long time. So just take any stretches that feel good for you after that. Maybe you just want to stretch that right leg out behind you. Maybe a downward facing dog feels quite nice. Stretch out the body. So any little movements at all that feel good. And then we're going to come back down into our tabletop. And we're going to take dragon pose on the left. So step that left foot forwards. Again, pad up that right knee, maybe fold the mat up, place that under your back knee, and then just find that position that works for you. I'm going to set the timer again for 4 minutes. So just getting yourself comfortable into your dragon pose. Just gently pressing the hips forwards. And just take a moment to notice how it feels on this side. Maybe you feel a little bit tighter on this side. Maybe you feel a bit more open. So if you do have quite open hips, then feel free to come straight down onto the forearms. So either onto a block or straight down onto the mat. Whatever works for you. Or just staying up on the palms, just gently pressing down through the hips, lengthening back through that right leg. Keeping the head up or maybe relaxing the head, whatever feels good for your neck. And just feel free to maybe close your eyes in any of these yin poses, just to really get really deep into the pose. Really focusing on being present. Inhaling for 4 breaths. Exhaling for 4 breaths. If you start to feel any kind of pain, just feel free to have a move around. Just coming up to the halfway mark now, so it's a good opportunity to make any little adjustments that you need to, and then finding that stillness again. So really challenging yourself not to fidget, not to pick at anything, just being completely still, melting down into the pose. Doing a quick body scan, just checking you're not tensing any part of your body unnecessarily here. Sometimes we're clenching our jaw, we don't even realise it. We're squeezing our eyes shut if it's uncomfortable. Just try and release any of that tension. It's going to make releasing into the poses a lot easier than if you're tensing up the body. So really try and let any tension go. And just coming up to our last minute here. So just remembering, if you're feeling a little bit more open now, feel free to come down onto the forearms. If you're finding it's just a little bit too much on your forearms, then maybe making your way back up onto your palms. So just observing your body. Last few deep breaths here in our dragon pose. Okay, so our time is up. So moving as slowly as you need to, just coming back into that tabletop position, moving any props out of the way, and again just stretching out the body in any way that feels good to you. Maybe just pushing back through that left heel, stretch that left leg out. Maybe a downward facing dog feels good. A little stretch out here, maybe walk the dog out a little bit. And then making your way down onto the mat. So we're going to come into a saddle pose. So this is the first position. So similar to our warm-up, you can just simply sit on the heels like this. So you're getting a bit of a nice gentle quad stretch here. If you want to come into a half saddle pose, and then taking the feet out in front, draw the right foot in towards the body and take that right leg behind you. So you might know this is half hero from our Vinyasa class. You can have the top of the foot on the mat, or you can flex the foot, whatever feels good for you. Maybe just moving that right calf muscle out of the way, create some space so that ideally we have both sit bones on the mat. So you can just stay here in this first position. This might be a big enough stretch for you. Or you can come down onto the forearms. So just noticing how this feels. If you feel a little bit more open, you can come all the way down onto your back. So you will have a slight arch in the spine, that's absolutely fine, that's part of the pose. Or you can take the arms overhead as well to have a nice opening up through the shoulders. Okay, so pick which variation you want for that. I'm going to set the timer again for 4 minutes. So remember, you can always go deeper into a pose. So you don't need to start off with the full version. You can just stay upright, just giving the muscles a chance to open up, to lengthen and stretch. But really important that this right knee stays on the mat. So if the right knee starts to come up, then that's not going to do your body any good, and you need to make your way back up again. Okay, so just staying in this first position is absolutely fine, as long as you are feeling the stretch. So feeling this opening through the quad, stretch through that right hip flex, then you're doing the pose. Again, just working with your body, working with how your body feels today, practicing ahimsa, non-violence towards ourselves and others. So that's the first minute gone. So maybe you want to come down a little bit deeper. Now the muscles have stretched out a little bit. Remember, just keep an eye on that right knee. Make sure the right knee stays on the mat. And if all of this is just too much, then remember you can just sit back up on the heels in that kneeling position. You're going to get a nice stretch that way. So try and keep the hips squared off to the front of the mat. Try not to be leaning over to the side. So keep actively pressing that right knee down into the mat. And we're just coming up to the halfway point here. So taking a quick body scan, just seeing how the body feels. Maybe you feel you can go a little bit deeper for the last 2 minutes. Maybe you need to back off a little bit and come back up. That's absolutely fine. Just be really aware of how your body's feeling. Just checking back in with the mind. Just focusing on that breath. Really bringing that stillness to the mind. Using your yin practice as a meditation. So we're just coming up to our last minute here. Maybe you want to lie all the way down, take the arms overhead. Maybe you want to come back up. So it's totally up to you, your practice. Just try and keep your body as safe as you can. So if that knee starts to hurt, then bring yourself out of the pose. Last couple of deep breaths here. Okay, so our 4 minutes is up. So really slowly making your way out of the pose. Maybe just holding onto that right knee and the right ankle. Just slowly bring that right leg back into center. So give the legs a little bit of a shake out. Maybe windscreen wipe the legs, quite nice. Stretch up those legs. So any movements that you need to do before we come onto the second side. Okay, so both legs out in front. And we'll draw the left foot in towards the body and then take that left leg behind. Okay, so top of the foot on the mat, or you can flex the foot, move that left calf muscle out of the way. Make sure you've got both sit bones on the mat. Again, if this is already too much, then just go back to that kneeling pose. Otherwise, staying in this position, making sure that left knee stays on the mat. I'm going to set the timer for 4 minutes. And then noticing how it feels on this side. It might feel really tight on this side, so just staying in this upright position. Maybe you come down onto the forearms. Maybe you're quite open and you go all the way back, lying down straight away. So totally up to you, how your body's feeling. Again, just be really gentle with your body and not having any expectations either. So maybe you were able to lie down on the right side. It doesn't necessarily mean you can come all the way down on this left side. Okay, it's very common to have two very different sides to the body. One side's really open, the other side can be quite tight. So just noticing these differences, not judging them, Just noticing, just being aware, just being really gentle with the body. Remembering to keep that left knee pressed down into the mat. In whichever position you're at, just finding that stillness in the body. Just releasing all the tension, just melting down into the pose. Just using gravity to draw you down. So just allowing these deep connective tissues to lengthen and stretch. And feeling free to close your eyes. Totally relax, drawing the focus inwards. Just listening to the sound of your breath. So we're well over halfway now. Just having a little moment to see how you feel. If you feel like you want to go a little bit deeper into the pose, feel free to do that. Maybe you need to come away from the edge a little bit. Maybe it's just a bit too much to hold for the last minute. Maybe that left knee is starting to hurt a little bit too much. And just make your way back out. So last minute here in our half saddle pose. Okay, our time is up. So if you've been lying down, slowly start to make your way back up, holding onto the left knee, the left ankle. Draw that left leg back into the center line, so nice and slowly. Stretch it out, give the legs a little bit of a shake out. Maybe a windscreen wipe, quite nice. Maybe just a quick stretch forwards. Stretch out those legs. Okay, so now we're going to come into a nice gentle hip opener pose called butterfly pose. So bringing the soles of the feet together. And make sure you're making like a diamond shape with the legs. Okay, so try not to have the feet too close in towards the body. This is a yin pose, not a yang pose. So nice and relaxed, knees out to the sides. And we're just going to fold the body forwards. Okay, so you can have your hands on the mat in front of you, you can have them on your feet, and wherever feels good. So just coming into a forward fold. So again, we want this forward rotation of the pelvis and the hips. So if you find you're not folding forwards very much, then again, feel free to sit on your block. You can sit on a blanket, so just prop yourself up a little bit, which is going to allow you to fold forwards. So holding this for 4 minutes again. And really just using gravity here. This is a really passive move. Just folding forwards. So really releasing down into the pose. Melting the chest down. So as well as gently opening up the hips, getting a nice stretch through the lower spine as well. Again, not holding on to any tension, really melting the body forwards, maybe closing the eyes. Finding that stillness in the body. Finding that stillness in your mind. And if this feels too much of a strain on your spine or your neck, then you can just come up a little bit. You can take the gaze forwards. You can just have the hands on the legs so you can keep a nice straight spine. If rounding the spine doesn't feel good for you, just keeping the spine nice and straight, just folding forwards in that way, just taking the pressure off the spine. You can place the arms on the legs, so just gently pressing the knees down towards the mat, just getting that opening in through the hips. So we're over halfway in our butterfly pose. So just noticing how your body's feeling. Maybe you can go a little bit deeper, maybe you creep the hands forwards. Maybe you just bring the hands back a little bit, taking the gaze forwards, maybe keeping the spine nice and straight, pressing down on those knees. Last few deep breaths here in our butterfly pose. Okay, so let's start to make our way out of this pose, moving nice and slowly, just rounding the spine, coming up. And then we're going to make our way all the way down onto our mats. So let's just have a nice stretch out first. So point the toes, take the arms overhead, stretch out the whole of the body. So we're going to take a pose called banana pose, banana asana, which is a really nice stretch for the side of the body. So move your hips over to the right hand side of your mat, and then take your legs over to the left corner, take the arms overhead and just shuffle the shoulders over to the left. So you're making like a banana shape with your body, okay? So try and keep both sit bones pressed into the mat, try and keep the hips level. If you want to intensify the stretch, then you can cross your right ankle over your left ankle, and you can take your right wrist with your left hand and pull the arms over. So you should feel a stretch all down that right side of the body. We're going to hold this pose for 3 minutes here. So this is a really nice pose if you suffer from sciatica. You're getting this really nice stretch down that right side. So try and keep both shoulders on the mat as much as you can. If this is too much with the arms, then just release the arms down by the side of the body. And if it's too much with the ankles crossed, then just release the crossed ankles. And really actively pressing that right hip down towards the mat. So we're just going to hold our banana pose for 3 minutes on this side. So just closing your eyes, focusing on that nice deep breath. So just coming up to our last minute on this side. So making any adjustments, if you feel like you can stretch a bit more, then just wiggle the shoulders a little bit further over to the left. Maybe stretch the feet out a little bit further to the left. Just making that curve as deep as you can. So last few deep breaths here. And then just releasing the grip, the hands, uncrossing the ankles. So just make your way back to the centre of your mat. Have a full body stretch out, just to realign the body. And then we'll move on to the other side. So shift your hips over to the left. And then take your feet over to the right hand side. Take the arms overhead. Shuffle the shoulders over to that left side. Try and keep the hips straight. Both sit bones pressed into the mat. And if this is too much for the arms and the shoulders, just have the arms alongside the body. Or you can grab hold of your left wrist with your right hand, gently pull that left arm across, and you can cross your left ankle over your right ankle just to intensify the stretch a little bit more. We're going to hold for 3 minutes. So find your position, find your version of the banana pose. And then find that stillness again. So making sure you're feeling that stretch, but nothing that's too uncomfortable. Making sure you're in a position that you can hold for 3 minutes. And just relaxing as much as you can. And just coming up to the halfway point here. So feel free to make any little adjustments that you need to. And then coming back, finding that stillness again. Just enjoy being still. So last deep breath here in this pose. And start to release, uncrossing the ankles, uncrossing the arms. Let's take that full body stretch again. Let's stretch out the body, just realign the spine. Then draw the right knee into the chest. Give it a good squeeze. Draw that right knee towards your right armpit. And taking your left hand onto your right knee, I'm going to come into a spinal twist. So just draw the right leg across the body. So that right hip is stacked on top of the left. Extend your right arm out to the side, turning to look over your right arm. So coming into our reclining spinal twist, which is always a good way to end a yoga practice, just to release the spine. So remembering you can look straight ahead or to the other side if you've got any tension in your neck. But be careful and be mindful not to force that right knee down to the mat. Just gently guiding it down. So feeling the chest really opening up and expanding in this pose. And this is a really good pose if you get any kind of back pain. This is quite useful to release tension in the spine. So slowly start to make your way back to center. Let's swap the legs over. So squeeze that left knee into the chest. Bring that left knee towards the left armpit. And then take the left knee into the right hand. Draw that left leg across the body. Release your left arm out to the side. Turn to look over your left arm. So stacking your left hip on top of your right hip, drawing that left leg down towards the ground, releasing both shoulders onto the mat, and just melting into this spinal twist. And just closing the eyes for a few breaths. Just making sure the body's not tense anywhere, just releasing as much as you can. Gently making your way back to centre. So let's draw the knees into the chest, squeeze those knees in, have a little rock from side to side. Bring your forehead to your knees, wrap your arms around your shins, give yourself a good squeeze. And then we'll release down into our final pose, Shavasana, final relaxation. So just coming to lie down flat on your mat. Just taking up as much space as you want. So when it's hot, it's really nice to just spread out. So just take the arms away from the body, palms facing up. Taking your feet as wide as your mat. Just allowing the feet to fall out to the sides. Just softly closing down your eyes. Just making sure you're not holding on to any tension anywhere in the body. Just release any remaining tension. Most importantly, just letting go of any tension that may be in your mind. Just allowing your body to melt down into your mat. So feel free to stay in your Shavasana for as long as you would like to. Otherwise, we're just going to slowly start to bring some movement back into the body, just waking the body up from our Shavasana. So just start to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. Start to slowly turn the head from side to side. And let's take the arms overhead, point the toes, let's take a full body stretch. Draw the knees into the chest. Have another little rock from side to side. And then slowly rolling onto your right side. Left palm on the mat, keeping your eyes closed. Just slowly making your way up into a seated position. Bringing your palms together at heart center. Sitting up nice and tall. And we'll take one more deep breath together. So take a nice big inhale in through the nose and a long exhalation through the nose. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing yoga with me today. I hope you enjoyed that yin class, something a little bit different. Hopefully you feel nice and cooled down and relaxed, and hopefully see you again next time. Thank you.